Hello, it's Amy with Paper Moon Journals, and I made this cute little 3x3 micro mini scrapbook album using the Winnie the Pooh Christmas papers. They had such tiny little 2x2 and 3x3 images. I knew it would be perfect for this project. It's actually a PDF in my Etsy shop, and I've already shared a tutorial on how to make the base, but I never shared anything on how I decorated it. So what I thought I would do today is give you a quick look at what we're going to do, and then we'll jump right into making one. I also make a 6x6 scrapbook mini album. It's a tutorial here, also a PDF in my Etsy shop. And this is a miniature version of the 6x6. So it's the same project, just miniaturized. And then the waterfalls have only 3 instead of 6 leaves per waterfall. But otherwise it's the same as my 6x6 mini album. And what gave me the inspiration to make it was, not only is it cute, when I make my 6x9 albums, I end up with a 3-inch square. And after making quite a few albums, I'll have a huge stack of little 3-inch squares. And so if I use those up and make them into these little scrapbook mini albums, there's one that's almost completed in vanilla and one in black. And then we'll be making one in manila or ivory colored today using some of my stack that I have here. I have this sped up to twice normal speed since it was an hour and a half of footage to try to get the video down, and most of what I do isn't very interesting maybe. So the first step is to take a 3-inch strip from a 12-inch thing of cardstock, if you don't already have a bunch of the 3-inch pieces, and you need 3 3-inch squares, a piece that's 1 3/4, and then what's left is 1 1/4 from the 3-inch square. And you want to arrange them on I have 2 5-inch pieces of scrapbooking paper glued end to end, and you want to arrange them like this, with about a 1/4 inch between each piece. And we want the last piece to cover the seam where our paper is joined together. And we'll keep the piece that we cut off the end of here. That's what we'll use to cover the inside. So don't worry, I made it this size for a good cause. And you can see that some of my spine pieces are cut slightly crooked because of how they fit under my cutter. It's hard to cut small things, and the chipboard scooted around a little when I was cutting it, but we won't notice at all because I can cover that by making the gap between them even. Will make it sit straight even though the chipboard's slightly crookedy. And each one of these 3-inch pieces aren't quite exactly the same size either, but they're close enough. And then we just trim that piece off. We'll save that because we'll be using that in the next step. And then we wrap our scrapbooking paper around the chipboard that we've glued down. If this looks difficult, it's really not. It's super easy. Sorry, the lighting's not the best over here, and I do keep bumping the camera. It is much easier for me to have the camera lined up with what I'm doing where I'm at now. A lot of times I cut out the corners before I put down the double-sided tape, but I do prefer using double-sided tape. This time I was going to use the double-sided tape to help me trim the excess off. So this tape is about 1 inch wide, and then I'll just trim off anything that's hanging off of that and then cut out the corners. There's more than one way to cut out the corners, but I find I get better results when I do mine in the V shape. Okay, now that we have the corners cut out, we want to finish wrapping it up. We want to burnish that double-sided tape to make sure we have good adhesion, both before and after we put it in place, and work it into the cracks between pieces. These are so fun to make, and it's actually pretty quick. It just takes, if you have it pre-constructed, it just takes about an hour to decorate. So if you make it in one day, it takes about an hour to make, and then the next day you can decorate it. It takes about another hour. Again, took me an hour and a half with stopping and starting, and I just cut each little piece as I went because I was focused on copying the original. So that scrap that we cut off the end, we just cut in half lengthwise and then glue that end to end, and that's a good piece to cover the inside here. You just need to trim off the excess. And I measure that by folding it back. And then that piece is perfect. To make it easy to work it into the grooves and everything, I like using double-sided tape. I have this 2-inch wide roll, and then I'll take that piece that's about 1 inch wide. And then be careful not to glue it to my desk, and then cut the excess off with my new non-stick scissors that I use for cutting double-sided tape, so my stickers don't get gummed up and sticky. My regular scissors. And you want to burnish the tape down so that it's stuck, you know, the side stuck to the paper good, and then peel the backing off, and we'll stick it into the book so that both sides are stuck down really well. I came up and filmed this while my husband was doing some work down at my office. He's building some bookcases for me. And I realized nobody was in the house. And I was like, oh, this is the perfect time to film a video without anyone walking in and having a conversation with me. Okay, so now the base of the outside has been constructed. I like to put a pair of magnets on it for the closure. You want to put it about 1/2 inch down, and then protect it with some double-sided tape until we're ready to decorate. And then let the other magnet attach itself. We put a dot on there, and that leaves a little mark where we want it to go, a little circle of glue. It marks the spot where we want it to go. And then we cover that up with double-sided tape and till we're ready to decorate. Lost part of this footage, so we'll get to see this a couple times. We have the hinge piece, which is 2 3/4 by 4.5 inches long, and we score it 3/8 inches, then another 1/2 inch, 3/8, and so forth, as indicated above. I just count them out: 3 notches for the 3/8 inches and 4 notches for the 1/2 inch sections. Then we want to fold on our pair those 1/2 inch pieces together into mountain folds. Then once we get all of those folded, we'll turn it upside down and we'll adhere those shut underneath. Now the mountains are valleys, and we'll glue those shut using our double-sided tape. So we use the double-sided tape to close each one of the now valleys. And once those mountains are sealed shut and glued up, they're hinges. They're not mountains anymore. So we just peel the backing off and fold this up. And then we're ready to add double-sided tape to each one of the hinges as well. And then we add double-sided tape to both sides of each one of these little hinges. I thought this was going to be so difficult before I had ever made one of these, and it's really not hard at all. It's super easy. I was surprised how easy it was. But I had avoided doing it for years, watching videos and not wanting to make anything with the hinge mechanism, and then realizing how easy it really is. Then to attach it into our scrapbook mini album, our micro mini album, I want to use double-sided tape. I'm going to trim the excess off with my non-stick scissors, and then glue that into the wide spine. Ready to get that in there straight and burnish it down. You want it centered top to bottom. And then now that we have, so your magnet should be able to hold it shut. As long as you don't put bulky things on between the magnets on the inside of the front cover where the magnets meet, then you're good. But if you follow me, Okay, so what I have here are the pages, and to make the pages, we cut 6 3 1/4 by 2 3/4, and we score those with the long side up, 1/2 inch on each side. Then we put double-sided tape on each one of those little flaps. Try not to stick them together. Maybe best not to have them in a stack like this, in case you go off the edge so you don't stick them together like I was doing. And then once we have them all ready with double-sided tape, we just pair them together. I like doing it this way so that attaching them together hinges them on the outside so it doesn't interfere with things going in the pocket. I also grabbed a 12-inch by 1/2 inch strip that I glued shut and then cut in half. So I have 2 3-inch pieces that I folded an inch over. I just eyeballed it. Those are going to be the little retention straps for our waterfalls later, but I saw that strip sitting over by the cutter and just grabbed it. So if you didn't already have a strip that size, make yourself a strip that size. And here I am pairing together my pages so that you flip-flop them so that each page closes the side of the other page. It's very clever. I love how it works out. And now we're ready to put them onto the hinge binding element. You just remove the double-sided tape, if you can, and then slide the little sleeve of a page on there and burnish it down. Isn't that easy? I was surprised the first time I did it. I was sure I would have problems or make mistakes, that it wouldn't work out. But it did. It all worked out the first time. After that, I got overconfident and then started being distracted while I was making the hinge, and then I make mistakes. But I know I just have to focus when I'm making the hinge. So now all 3 pages are in, easy peasy, and we're ready to make the waterfall pages. I like to use my scoring tool for that. For the waterfall pages, we have 6 2 1/4 by 2 1/2 inch pieces. And with the short side up, we scored at 3/8 inch. I'm having trouble reaching it and not bumping my camera. Is what I'm doing. I just score each of those at 3/8 inch. Try not to cut into the paper or punch a hole through the paper when you're doing this. And this will make our 2 waterfall sections. I'll use these tiny little Velcro dots on the retention strap, although we won't need those until we're ready to decorate. I did want to bring it up that we'll be needing that supply. You can get yours handy. So we'll be putting 3 waterfalls on the center back and the inside, I guess, right section, we'll call it. And you just line them up one after another. I'm just burnishing in the fold line with my folding tool, my bone folder. And I line them up with each other. Assuming the first one is straight, I make sure the next one looks straight with the first one. That way, if I didn't have it lined up on the folding, on my scoring board perfectly, I don't have to count on them being lined up underneath each other, making it work. And then that's our retention strap. Just glue that down. Leave that in place. And then these waterfalls, I like to face the other way. It was inspired by a scrapbook mini album by Graphic 45, I think an 8-inch album. Inspired my 6-inch because I wanted to be stingier with my paper, and I didn't like how much paper the 8-inch one used. So then I made a 6-inch. And then, as I already said, this one was inspired by the 6-inch. I have some other fun mini albums that I'd like to share. And if you're not sure the difference between a junk journal and a mini album, to me, the main thing is the pages and then how it's decorated. The mini album is definitely aimed more at photos and less at writing. although writing space and journaling cards can be a part of it, where a junk journal is way more about having lots of pages and lots of interactive things, although the scrapbooks have lots of interactive things as well. Okay, so we have our waterfalls in. All we need to do is add our pocket pages for our page pocket pieces. I have two 2.5 by 2.5 inch squares and one 5 by 2.5 inch piece that I'm folding in half. And I like to put that in the front pocket as a flip out. And now it's all ready to decorate. You can decorate it with whatever papers you choose to use. I decided that I'll show you how I decorated with this Echo Park Christmas Winnie the Pooh. I got this mega pad from Amazon.com. I actually ended up with quite a few of these mega pads from Amazon.com. I don't remember how many I got altogether, but we'll use one each of the cut apart pages, and that page there, any one of those would make a cute cover, whichever one you want for your cover. So you'll want all of those cut apart. And then I have out one of each of the paper designs, and I have a bunch of pages left over from the last one that I made. So I'll cut all of the leading strip off of those. I'll get all the cut aparts ready, and then I'll meet you back here and we'll be all ready to decorate. You do the same thing if you're using your papers, and we'll meet back here with everything all cut out and ready to go. We'll be using the sentiment strips and everything. So using my new cutter, which is great for cutting out small, narrow things like this. That would have been very difficult to do on my bigger cutter. But yes, okay, I'll pop off, I'll get this done, and I'll meet you back here. Since I'm trying to copy something exactly, I won't cut a bunch of stacks of things and then sit and work with them. I'll be copying. So in the first one, I had red background. So the first things I do to cut out is I cut 4 2 3/4 by 2 3/4 pieces of the red paper. And then I decide that it's too big of a border and that I'm not happy with that. So I come back with some light blue and cut it like 2 7/8 by 2 7/8 to make a blue border around it, to cover more territory on the cover. And then for the spine pieces, not realizing that one of those could be cut apart to decorate the spine, and not looking at my directions at all, I start cutting pieces for the spine. But if I had just looked at my notes, 2 3/4 by 2 inch piece for the large spine, and 2 3/4 by 1.5 inch piece for the smaller spine. And then if that's not quite right, then just trim a little bit off so that it fits, like I did here. It depends on how far of a gap you put between the chipboard pieces, whether that's a little bit too small or not, or too big, I mean. And in this case, I feel like that looks a little bit small on the cover. I don't feel like it's covering enough. So I'm like, ooh, instead of doing the red with the blue layer, I'm going to reverse it on our project and do the blue with the red. Sure how you feel about that? That's what's going down right now. So I hope you like it, because that's what's happening. That's what's happening here. Okay, so now that we have those two pieces, let's find our little piece that we want for the cover. And I want to raise that up on chipboard. It's actually almost a 3-inch piece on its own, so you can see it would cover the whole cover. So let's trim that down to 2.5 inches. Let me get my trimming board out again. And so what I'll do is I'll trim 1/4 inch off of each side, so that the second cut is 2.5 inches. And then I cut 1/4 inch off, making it 2 3/4 inch. And then rotate it, and then the second cut in this direction makes it 2.5 tall. So now I have 2.5 inches square. And that's the piece I want to raise up on chipboard. So let me get a chipboard scrap that's 2.5 inches square. I had a 3-inch square and I just cut it down, because I have a bunch of those little 3-inch square scraps. And now we're ready to glue. Let's get this glued in place. We'll wait to add glitter or flat backs or other embellishments like the bow until it's all done. But I find that having the cover on 100% keeps me from decorating things upside down during the process, which will happen. I'll get up and I'll come back, or whatever happens, I get interrupted or something. And then when I come back, I've got it turned around. I don't notice until I do notice that half of the things are upside down. So yeah, that helps. Another thing is sometimes I just mark with a little arrow. My glue is getting toward the bottom, and so it's sticking and needs a refill. That happens every time. I should refill these right before the start of the video. But let me jump forward. I'll poke it free and refill it, and we'll jump forward and keep going. I should have refilled it while I had the lid off and everything, but I didn't. I just worked it clear because there was still glue left in there. But I'll end up having to refill it before the filming's, before we finish this project, at least once, that little container. I was trying to decide if I wanted blue side up or red side up, but I decided, no, I definitely want the red side up. I hope you try making this, that you check it out. Just gluing down all of our pieces, our pre-cut pieces. And then we want the sentiment. It says Christmas Day on it. Put that on the skinny spine. Then we'll wait to add flat backs until later. And then for the flat spine, we want the little Pooh. It's a little 2-inch square with Pooh on it. We'll trim that down. And I just looked at the grid pattern from the original and copied it down. But we'll want about 1 inch wide without cropping out and into any of Pooh. And I just dry fit it, hold it up, make sure it looks good before I put glue on it. Come back and add the flat backs later. We can remove our double-sided tape from the magnet now. We're ready to decorate. Now I'm regretting, it's right now, that I'm regretting not refilling the container when I had the lid off and I was poking it clear. I like to burnish down around the magnet really well so I can see where it is and not to cover it up or interfere with it later. When I decorate, you don't want to cover it with more than one thing of paper. See, now that it's down at the bottom, it's really sticking. It was clogged and then it wasn't coming out until it really was. Use my bone folder to burnish that down. Get out all the air pockets. And then this one here with the little Pooh on it. Speaking of pockets, we made into a little pocket. Little tuck spot. And then I punched out some circles from the page with Pooh in a little scarf looking up. It's a page that has a bunch. It's just a single Pooh with a scarf. And then it's a different scarf. In the pattern. Here it is. And so we'll punch out 3 of those to tuck into our little pocket. 3 different colors of scarf is what I did. And then we want to fussy cut one of those out to put on the back cover. I wish I had it better where you could see, but you can see that I'm using my giant non-stick scissors to cut out that tiny little piece. Isn't that exciting? And then I like this snowflake one better. So, and I can see some air bubbles during editing too. I need to burnish that down better. I think I like the blue side better. So just put that down. And then we'll add our tiny little fussy cut Pooh over the top. That's cute. This time I remember to burnish it down, work out all the bubbles. Here we go. I think I do like it better with the red on bottom and the blue on top, but it is what it is. It's fun to try different things, to make the same project over and over and to change it slightly. What I'd like to do is, and I already did, is to make different covers. But I've already gifted away the other ones that I made with the different covers, so I'll need to make more. I've got a bunch more of this paper and a stack full of those little 3x3s already pre-cut to make little mini albums. So maybe that's what I'll do this afternoon. There's some work being done at my office, but they ran off to another project, so I was able to get this done, and then they'll be back. So that'll be my opportunity to go up. I need to film a section that's missing where I made the hinge was missing, and so I'm going to go again. I wanted to make more of these, so I'll make more, and then when I make the hinge, I'll try to remember. Oh gosh, I've crowded myself out of room here, but I wanted you to see that I was cutting the pieces. It's fitting the page, and so they're called page pocket pieces. 2 1/4 by 2 1/4 square is what I recommended for that. You could actually go larger, but I find if the border's really narrow, that if my cutting isn't perfect, it becomes obvious. And I think you've already noticed that my cutting isn't perfect. So we'll just look at the original and pull out each piece that we're going to need, each type of paper, and then cut it to suit. So we'll need another 2 1/4 by 2 1/4 piece. And then that pocket that was surely made out of a scrap at the time is probably 2 inches wide by 2.5 inches or 2 3/4 inches. It's like maybe 1 3/4 by 2 3/4. My new piece is a little bit taller. There we go. That looks right. 2 3/4 inches wide by 1.5 inches tall. And then we have our 2 1/4 inch square to go on our page pocket piece. That's what I called it in the instructions. And then to decorate the pages, we actually use 2.5 by 2.5 inch square. So for the plaid paper, we want 2.5 inches square. And I could see that on the next page we'll need 2.5 inch square of that paper with all the cute little characters. It's so cute. I just love this paper. It is so darling. And like I said, when I saw the 2x2 and 3x3 cut aparts, I was like, oh, this is absolutely perfect. There's some bigger cut aparts, but I have a bigger scrapbook mini album tutorial for the ATC tag album, which is what Graphic 45 called it when it was available for sale. It's been retired, so I figured out how to recreate it, and then it's the perfect size. It's like 4x5, and it's the perfect size for the larger cutouts. And then I have some bonus footage at the end of this where we take all of the tiny scraps left over and use them up and to prepare them for that other project or whatever you want to do. It uses up all the scraps so that you don't have to do anything with them. Any scraps that were smaller than a full page, almost all of them got used. There was just a tiny handful of little scraps that I just threw into recycling at that point. It would have been more work to save the scraps than to let them go. So there we go. Continuing on with our little 2 1/4 inch pieces, we needed dark green for the background here. It looks like I had red in the background of the other one, but this time I chose to use green and green. I think that looks nice. It looks like I'm also using a different patterned paper to mat my little page pocket piece, just based on what I have out, which is what I would have done the first time. So see, I cut that piece, that 2.5 inch piece in advance because I knew we'd need it for this page on the right. And then on the left, we'll need a 2.5 inch piece that's green and one of the cut aparts. Get that piece cut out of the green. I think I cut 2 of them because I could see the yellow on the reverse is going to be on the next page. I could see that coming up, so I just went ahead and cut 2 now. Put the green down on the left, and then we want the little Christmas tree cut apart on top of that. And then I want to add a little Pooh fussy gut, a little Pooh fussy gut to the little Christmas tree on the left, like I did in the original. That was so cute. So I get one of the little Poohs that didn't fit. He was between where I could fit my circle punch, and then cut him out using my giant scissors. You don't really have to get the tiny scissors. And then I just let some white peek out instead of accidentally cutting bits of him off. And then he's going on a white background, so that'll be just fine. You won't really see the white bits. And then this pocket page looks like it has green background, and it took me a minute to figure it out during filming, but those little stockings is the back side of one of the little 2-inch cut-aparts. I choose the wrong one, or a different one, so then it just makes a different change later. We pick a different one for something else, because we've used it up here. Alright, so I'm flipping through my little stack of ephemera, trying to figure out which one has the stockings on it, going back and forth through all my pages and things, and then I remember. Let's cut forward to me remembering. Here we are. I remembered it's in the ephemera stack on the left. It's one of these cut-aparts. We just use the back side. And later, I'm missing that little green one, so we use a different color. We use the plaid one instead of the green one later, because I already used it up here. So I've got the plaid paper, and I've cut it down to 2 1/4 inches square for the back side of our little page pocket piece. And then for the next page, I'll use a paperweight to hold it open. I have that yellow piece that I'd pre-cut 2 1/2 inches square. And then we'll use one of the little cut-aparts with the green background and all the little Pooh characters. Center that on here. I like using these little mini albums as a celebration of the paper collection. If you love the scrapbooking papers like I do, then this is a great way to enjoy the paper, as opposed to just keeping the pad in my hoard and never using it because there might be some great project. I don't know. When I get the papers, I tend to just want to hoard them in my collection because they're so cute. And then, but I find if I use them in a project like this is a much cuter way to store my paper collection. Use them up in some cute little project, or quite a few cute little projects, and then, enjoy your papers that way instead of in the pad unused, which I have done and still am prone to do. If they're just too cute, I'm not sure that I'm worthy or whatever of the papers. It sounds crazy when I try to say it out loud, and it probably is. Let me know if you feel the same way. If you're still watching. We're in a half an hour in, so only my tried and true followers are still with me now. If you'd like me to know that you're a tried and true follower, you can leave a little like Christmas tree emoji in the comments. Oh no, if you made it 3/4 of the way through the video, or 2/3 really. So I'm really starting to run out of glue now, and I'm going to try to make it work all the way to the end with the glue I have left. I don't know why I didn't want to refill the container, but it was no big deal. I did. I stopped, refilled the container, and then came back. That's why so much glue is coming out now. Okay. We have our pages almost all decorated. I just want to mat that page here with the little light bulbs, like little Christmas tree lights or something, I think they are. Now I'm starting to wonder if I have that paper upside down. I thought the paper went this way, but now I'm wondering if the paper goes the other way. Oh well, I'll be consistent. It's upside down on both. And then these little cut-aparts I think look cute on the waterfalls. So the first page of each waterfall, I want to have one of the little cut-aparts, and I need to trim those down. And actually the measurements in my instructions make it a little too tight. So while I say to decorate the waterfall with 1 5/8 by 2 1/4, probably 1 1/2 inch would be fine. Would fit. It's just a little tight to get it on there. The 1 5/8. That 1/8 of an inch makes a difference with how tiny these waterfalls are. So this time I decided I wanted to mat behind the little image because the color of the image and the color of the background paper is too much the same, giving us a similar effect to the craft. So I'm playing around with papers in my scraps. I will see in a second that I'm not quite on screen, and I'll push this over. But I was just playing around with my scraps, trying to find a piece that's the right size. The other thing is, once I trimmed a piece to the size I wanted, then I just used that piece to help me, held up to my scraps to cut out the other scraps. Then I noticed that these cut aparts, these rectangular ones, are just the right size to go behind the waterfall. We don't need to cut anything out for behind the waterfall. Let's put our little retention strap Velcro on. You want to put it so the fuzzy side is on the strap, and then the clear scratchy side goes on the image. That way you don't really see it. It doesn't hide the image. And then I had this tiny little scrap that was just the right size to layer up over our 1/2-inch retention strap. So here I've got the Velcro going in on this one, and that same red scrap, just shy of a 1/2-inch wide somehow, trimmed off of some piece. Then I used my 1-inch circle punch to punch out circles to put on top to decorate that. And let's see what else is left to do here. We'll need some flat backs, some ribbon to put a bow on the front, and of course glue to adhere that. If you'd like to add glitter, you'll want to get your glitter. I don't think I end up adding any glitter. So I've got my flat backs out and a spool of ribbon. This time I thought I would use gold ribbon. The first time I used sari silk ribbon, but I ripped it down into a thinner strip so that I could tie it into a bow. I think I already had ripped down strips sitting near me, and then just grabbed one. But I have this new really pretty, it's spool of gold or silver ribbon that I'd love to use. I think it'd make beautiful bows, so we'll be using that today. I'll be doing that. And there's a secret to making perfect tiny little bows. I like to use a fork to help me to get them tied just right. Consistent, perfect little bows, tiny, just right for this size project. So if you're still with me and you stay with me, I'll show you that little trick on how to use a fork. I think it's also a video on my channel. It was a short. It's so far back it'd be hard to find though. At this point my fingers are so sticky, they work as good or better than the waxy tool that my kitty cat took off with. I saw her playing with it, but I don't know where it went. I was busy at the time. I was glad she was entertained. I didn't need it, but yeah, that little wax tipped pencil. We've got the flat backs on, and I think we're ready. Let me just get the ribbon out and grab that fork. You wrap it around the fork like a shawl. I have the left side overwrapping the right, and then I poke it through the center of the fork tines underneath. Then you come up over the top through the center of the fork tines and tie it in a knot in the back. That's it. Back it up and rewatch it if you need to, but it's pretty simple. You wrap it up underneath your little shawl, you poke it through the center, and then you bring that poked through the center piece up from the back around through the middle and tie it in a knot. That paperweight's not going to hold it down. I don't have any binder clips over here, so I'll just use this paper clip. It'll do, even if it doesn't look as cute. And that's it. I think this is done. And all that's left to do is to take care of these scraps. See this pile of scraps? And then I have a few that are about a half page that I had set off to one side. I didn't think I would need. So what I'll do is I'll grab a piece of tea-stained paper, tea-stained cardstock, or actually it's printed. It's printed on one side, tea-stained. Here it is. And then we'll collage onto the white side of this. We'll just cover all of the white up. And then when we cut it apart, it'll be tea-stained on one side and collage on the other. I like to use glue stick for this. If anything's flapping up at the end, I can use the glue from my bottle. But if you get enough glue stick on here, it will not come apart later, even if you want it to. And I will move things out of the way and get this scooched over so that we can see it once I start getting worked into the other side of the paper a little more. I look up at the camera and see that it's off screen. Here we go. already pushed it in, and I'll push it in and up quite a bit more here in just a second. We can really see what's happening. And I just take my time picking one piece, going some vertical, some horizontal, and then later that determines whether it will be a vertical or a horizontal journaling card. I like cutting them into 2.5-inch wide pieces. Then I can always put them in my tag top punch if I want. The tag top punch hates these though because of how thick it is layered up with a card over card. So I try to go single level and butt them up against each other as much as possible at the start. And then at a certain point that's not possible. To cover all the white with my scraps, like right here, it just isn't going to be butted up against each other. But that helps keep it from getting too thick. These tags are really nice to put in into pockets where you need something fat. You don't want it to fall out, like flip up pockets. You want something nice and snug in there so it doesn't come flying out when people do the flap up. But this is my favorite thing at the end of this project before I wanted to do anything else, so I didn't have to organize or store the scraps, was just to make them into journaling cards and then store the pre-made journaling cards with the scrapbooking papers. And I'll have them all ready. I think it's fun watching the collage slowly develop in front of us. And then we'll cut them into 2.5 by 4-inch cards. As they go into, I cut them into 5-inch strips and then into 2.5-inch pieces, something like that. We'll watch it happen. I'll put some music on. Have some music in the background, probably Christmassy music. This is Christmas project. These make great gifts. They would make cute little Christmas ornaments. They're the size of a large Christmas ornament, 3 inches square. You could just set it on the tree without even hanging it, or add an eyelet to one of the spines so that you could hook a ornament hanger into it, a tree ornament hanger. That would be a great idea. And because it just takes a couple hours, it makes a great gift. I don't sell at craft fairs. I wonder if this would be a craft fair one, a good craft fair project, because it is more affordable than a lot of the other stuff, since it does just take a couple hours. And if you didn't have to add shipping and Etsy fees and stuff onto the price. It seemed to me when I watched the videos that the people who do craft fairs try to keep the things under $5. You know, $1 or $2 seems to do best. So I've cut these into 5-inch tall, or probably 4-inch tall pieces, and then 2.5-inch wide strips after that. And that small little pile of scraps on the left is all I have left. And this is a perfect example of how important a corner rounder is, because those look okay. But if we just get like a corner chomper and round the corners on these, then they look so nice and professional. If we ink up the edges, then they'll look even better, so that the white edges of the paper won't be showing anymore. Aren't those nice? They look so polished and professional as soon as I round the corners on those. Do you have one of these corner chompers? If so, I'd like to know how you're supposed to get all the corners out of there after you're done chomping. It seems like they drop inside the thing and then don't want to come out, especially if you get too many of them in there before you notice. But this is great for cutting through thick things, and this is pretty thick about now. I'm trying to shake out all the corners. So here they are. Here's our nice little collection of journaling cards, and I'm just going to throw that in my recycling. That little pile of scraps that was left. It's not worth saving. And then we have 10 journaling cards ready for our next project. I also have these cut aparts and all of these pages that I've ripped out but didn't use for my last 2 projects. So these are the kind of parts would be great for that ATC mini tag album. I think I'll use my instructions from that, my cut list, and use that to these papers to decorate one of those. That'll really help use up a lot of those pattern papers that I have. Now that the glue is dried enough, it's still a little bit damp, but I think we can look at it without ruining anything now. And I think they look pretty similar. I do think the craft one looked nicer. I think I like it a little bit better on the dark background, but that's not going to stop me from making more on ivory because I am. The craft paper's a lot stiffer and thicker, and I don't like working with it as much to wrap the projects. So I'll be making more of these, but I'll be making them in manila, and it's a good thing because I still, as of the point of doing the voiceover, haven't filmed making the hinge part yet, since that video footage was missed. I thought I was filming and I wasn't. I think this came out so cute. Please tag me in it if you give it a try, and as always, have a wonderful day, and thank you for watching.